Happy New Year. We're really excited to launch the second half of the academic year with this webinar. This is our Alabama Goes to College campaign refresher. If I haven't yet met you, my name is May Whiting, and I am the Data and Research Manager at Alabama Possible. So I'd like to take a quick moment to recognize all of these sponsors who support our professional development trainings. And then I also want to take a moment to thank our partners who really collaborate on all of our Alabama Goes to College work. You'll see a lot more of these partners during some of our upcoming webinars. Some quick housekeeping notes before we get started. Please keep your microphones on mute at all times to avoid any feedback during the presentation. This webinar is going to be recorded and it will be posted to our YouTube channel that can be found at youtube.com/AlabamaPossible. And then throughout today's webinar, you can submit your questions using our chat feature. So as you're doing that, please make sure to select everyone when typing your question or your comment in the chat, rather than sending a private message to one of our staff. So we'll be collecting all of your questions and comments throughout the webinar, and then we'll have a designated time towards the end for a little Q&A session. We will have several poll questions throughout today's webinar. So these are really just designed to get your real-time feedback. And then if you are a high school educator who is looking to receive professional development, then you will need to participate in the poll questions in order to receive your PD credit. And a few reminders around PD credit. You must register both in Zoom to be able to access the webinar, and you must also register in PowerSchool in order to receive the PD credit. And you should always be using your own Zoom login credentials rather than borrowing someone else's. This just ensures that we are able to correctly account for everyone's attendance. So if you are posting on social media, please tag us at AL Goes to College. That way we can both see and celebrate all of the great work that y'all are doing. We have some hashtags listed down below that you can utilize to keep this conversation moving around college and career work. Now, most of y'all are already signed up, but high schools still are able to sign up for the Alabama Goes to College campaign. You can do that at alabamapossible.org/register 2022-2023. And if your school is registered by our October 1st deadline, then you will be considered for our end of year awards, which we'll talk a little bit more about later on during today's presentation. But I just dropped that registration link into the chat. So a quick refresher, our Alabama Goes to College campaign really aims for every student in our state to have the opportunity to plan for, pursue, and complete valuable post-secondary credentials. And there are 3 different campaign components. So our first is Cash for College. This focuses on both supporting and building awareness around financial aid opportunities. Second, we have Alabama College Application Week. That is part of a national effort to help high school seniors navigate the college application process as well as the college admissions process. And then lastly, we have College and Career Decision Day. This is an opportunity to celebrate our seniors as they commit to pursue education beyond high school. So that can be anything from a 2-year degree to a 4-year degree, or a certificate or industry recognized credential. And then we also uplift students who are entering the military or pursuing a skilled trade. So today's learning objectives, we hope by the end of this webinar that you'll deepen your familiarity with our campaign components, that you'll also gain some confidence with navigating our Educators Toolkit, and that you'll identify one new strategy or asset that you'll use in the upcoming months to increase awareness for college and career initiatives. And hopefully we're all working towards that goal of promoting post-secondary pathways with our students. All right, so we're going to start off with a couple of poll questions. Let me get those launched. So we just want to check in and see how it's going with the class of 2023. So I've just launched the polls and you should see 2 questions on your screen. All right, so in terms of the first question, what percentage of your seniors would you estimate have already been either admitted to college, found a job, internship, apprenticeship opportunity, or plan to enlist in the military? And 42% of you selected the range that includes 40 to 59%. So around half or a little over half of your students having done that. And then the second most was the 60 to 79%. So that's really encouraging. We have a few more months left in the academic year to make sure we're getting that all the way up to 100%. And then as we think about supporting students towards these pathways, FAFSA can be a big component. So how challenging has it been to facilitate FAFSA completion with your seniors? And half of you said somewhat challenging. So we definitely understand. We're going to talk more about what those challenges are, because we really want to get your feedback and hear from you how we can be of help. So if you wouldn't mind in the chat, adding what has been your biggest challenge with FAFSA completion. So there might be several, but if you could just type in the chat what your biggest challenge has been, we would love to learn more. And y'all might have seen, if you had a chance to go ahead and read our newsletter that went out this morning. We are currently administering a survey in partnership with UAspire, and that survey is to get your feedback on how FAFSA completion is going. So there's a lot more opportunity to really elaborate on the challenges there. And we hope that you'll use that opportunity to share your thoughts. If you do, you have the opportunity to receive a $25 gift card. So I just wanted to plug that while we're talking about this. Okay, so to go through some of the challenges, seeing parent information, parent financial section, getting parents involved, parent information and attendance, parent completing. So we're definitely on a strong theme here. Parent involvement and parent information can be a huge challenge. Outside of that, so looking away from the parent section, it looks like students not having tax information with them, and then finding time to meet with students. So there's obviously a lot of benefit of meeting with students one-on-one, but we know that's not always possible. Sometimes we're doing this in group settings or other advising settings. So thank y'all so much for sharing. It sounds like a challenge we're hearing year to year. So I'm excited for some of our presenters who are coming later on today, who will definitely be talking about engaging families. So looking forward to that. And I'm also going to drop in the chat the survey that I was mentioning. Like I said, this is a survey we're doing in partnership with UAspire, just to get more feedback on FAFSA completion so that we can better support you and your students. All right, so I'd like to start off with our campaign timeline. This can be found in the General Assets folder of our Educator Toolkit. So I'm going to go ahead and drop a link to that in the chat right now. So if you're in the General Assets folder, you'll find a timeline both for educators, and then there's one that's more student facing. It goes through all of the key milestones, key checkpoints for our campaign throughout the year. So this is what we've already gotten through and seen a lot of success from. And then if I go to the the next slide, you'll see what we have coming up ahead. So as we round out the year, we'll have a second round of Alabama College Application Week. We'll discuss that a little bit later on, but it's coming to you in February. And with that, of course, we're channeling all of our efforts into supporting students through the admissions and the financial aid application process. And then we're also supporting them with job and internship applications. So hopefully all of that will culminate in College and Career Decision Day, which occurs on or around May 1st. That's where we're celebrating all of the decisions that students have made for their next steps post-graduation. And around that time, we are also checking in with how FAFSA completion is going. So May 1st is our Cash for College award deadline. That's when all of our end of year awards will be determined. So we'll talk more about those in a few slides. And then a very special part of our year is celebrating all of the hard work that y'all have put into supporting your students. And we do that on Celebration Day, which is right now scheduled for June 7th. So feel free to go ahead and save the date for that. So I'm going to dive into each separate campaign component, starting with the first component, which is Cash for College. So the goal of Cash for College is for every graduating senior to complete the FAFSA before they graduate from high school. That way they'll be able to access federal, state, and institutional aid to pay for education after high school. So we have a few key resources listed here. The first being AICS, or the Alabama Commission on Higher Education's FAFSA completion portal. So this is an online platform, and if you are a high school educator, this platform is absolutely essential. So first, you need to get login credentials to be able to access the student level FAFSA data that the platform provides. So there's both a public-facing version that anyone can review, and then there's also an educator-facing version where you can check on student-level FAFSA completion progress. And this platform is so critical because it is updated very regularly. So you are seeing timely FAFSA completion data, which allows you to really target your outreach with students and give attention to those students who might be a bit further behind than their peers. So we plan to talk a ton about this platform in our upcoming webinar. That'll be on Wednesday, January 25th. So we'll go into great detail about the portal. But in the meantime, if you have any questions, you of course can contact us with those questions, but you can also reference the guide that I have linked in these slides, which we'll be sending out after the webinar. So a very important tool, that AIC FAFSA completion portal. Next, we have the Cash for College data dashboard. This is a platform for you to check your school-wide FAFSA completion progress. And this platform is updated weekly, usually on Friday, just depending on when the US Department of Education releases the data. And so this is especially useful for schools that might not have access to that AIC portal that is mentioned above. So it is just a way to check on school-wide completion. And then it also gives you a few different ways to compare across schools or across districts. We'll also be talking about that dashboard in our January 25th webinar. And I have included a little FAQ linked in the slides. So those two platforms I've just linked in the chat for you. And then lastly, we have FAFSA.gov. Its web pages are extremely detailed in describing both very simple FAFSA situations as well as the more complex ones. And then they also have some great flyers, one-pagers, and graphics that really outline both the process of completing the FAFSA and the steps necessary to do so. So we recommend you using that as a resource. And if there's anything that is unclear, definitely reach out to us for more assistance. We're happy to help. So a quick poll question. We just want to see how many of you are utilizing the AIC FAFSA completion portal. So like I mentioned, the educator-facing version does require login credentials. So if you don't have access, what we first determine is whether or not your district has signed a use agreement for you to be able to receive access. If they have, then it's a very simple process of getting an account set up for you. So if you need access, that's something that I will definitely follow up with you about following this webinar. So by answering this question, I'll have your details to be able to follow up. All right, so about 58% of you are using the portal. And we definitely hope to see that get all the way up to 100%, but I recognize some of you might not be with Alabama high schools. You might be a community-based organization that is supporting students. So we understand not everyone on this webinar will be using the platform, but we certainly hope if you're an educator that you are doing so. So definitely expect to see follow-up from me afterwards if you are in need of access. Okay, so as y'all know, key dates for our Cash for College component, October 1st is when the FAFSA opens every single year. So it's important to remind your current seniors that they're not just going to be completing it this cycle, they're also going to complete it again October 1st of next year. And they're going to do that every year that they'll be attending a post-secondary institution. So keep that fresh on their mind so they don't think it's just a one and done. Then December 1st was our deadline for Alabama schools to compete for the Best Hustle Award. That is for improving early FAFSA completion. We'll talk more about that on the next slide. And then, like I mentioned, May 1st will be the deadline for Alabama schools to compete for our Most Improved and MVP awards. Both of those come with grant prizes. The Most Improved award is given to schools with the highest year-to-year improvement rate for FAFSA completion. And then the MVP award is given to schools with the highest overall FAFSA completion percentages. So like I just mentioned with our Best Hustle Award, the deadline for that was December 1st. And I hope y'all had a chance to see our announcement that we had 138 high schools win this award. So this is given to schools that improved early FAFSA completion by at least 10% when comparing 2021 to 2022. And we're always comparing the first 2 months of the FAFSA cycle. So October and November of 2021 and October and November of 2022. So if you saw an increase of at least 10%, then you were recognized with this award. We thought 138 schools is especially impressive because showing improvement from last year when FAFSA completion was really already quite high because of the new FAFSA policy, that is really remarkable. So congratulations to all of the schools that won this award. We're really thrilled to see all of the energy that y'all are still putting into FAFSA completion. And we hope that you'll carry on that momentum throughout the rest of the year. So that's our mid-year recognition. And then we also have our end of year awards. So as a reminder, with both our MVP award and our Most Improved award, we have updated the school sizes that are given these awards. So we only compare schools to other schools of similar sizes, and we have these 5 size categories so that there will be 5 MVP awards and 5 Most Improved awards. And we hope that by changing these size categories, we made the competition a little bit more fair this year. So these size categories directly align with what AIC uses to display their top achievers on their data homepage. So if you're using the AIC portal regularly, you might have seen that little top achievers section, and it splits up schools by size. The only difference that we made to their size categories is that we have split up their 1A category into 2 different size categories. So as you can see here, this is what each size category will be for this upcoming determination of our end of year awards. And so throughout the rest of the year, we'll kind of be monitoring progress towards these awards. So we'll showcase our schools who are currently in the running for our awards and give you kind of regular updates through our leaderboard up until the May 1st deadline. So with that, I wanted to check in on FAFSA completion by looking at the National College Attainment Network's FAFSA tracker. So what this is showing us is data for the class of 2023, and we're looking at completion through December 30th of 2022. So if you're wondering why this might look a little bit different from what AIC is reporting on its portal, that's because AIC is reporting all the way through January 11th, so today, and this is just looking kind of through the end of 2022. So on the left part of the screen, you'll see Alabama compared to the nation, and this is looking at year-over-year percentage change in FAFSA completion. So Alabama was much lower than the national year-over-year change. So we're currently seeing a decrease of 0.3% in FAFSA completion, whereas the nation is seeing a 6% increase in FAFSA completion. So it is a little bit discouraging to see that decrease when comparing last year to this year, but I hope that we can use that as motivation to really start boosting FAFSA completion the second half of the year. And then if we're looking at the right part of the screen, you can see our state's completion rate is just a little bit lower than the national completion rate. So our state is seeing a 28.5% completion rate by the end of 2022, and the nation is seeing a 30.4% completion rate. So what that means for our state compared to other states in the country, we are ranked 28th in the nation for FAFSA completion. If you remember last year, we finished off in the top 10. So I'm hoping we can see a lot of positive movement as we continue to support students throughout the second half of the year. Just want to break this down a little bit further for you. This is showing change, percentage change in FAFSA completion by selected characteristics. So Alabama is seeing pretty low year-over-year increases in some populations, and even seeing some decreases in populations. So we're seeing a 3.5% change in year-over-year completion for low-income students. And then we're seeing really minuscule year-over-year changes for students, whether they're in schools that are considered high minority or low minority. And then when we look at geographic locale, we're only really seeing increases for cities, and we're seeing declines for suburbs, towns, and rural locales. So just want to keep that on everyone's radar. Hopefully by the end of the year, we can get this all to positive increases so that we're finishing 2023 much stronger than we finished 2022. But we recognize it's really hard to beat 2022 when we are seeing such tremendous progress during the first year of the policy. So I just want to recognize that. As always, you can check out our step-by-step walkthrough video for support with your students' FAFSA completion. So we created this specifically for Alabama students. And in this video, you'll find specific timestamps. So that allows you to kind of toggle through individual sections of the FAFSA, or you can just watch the video in its entirety. But it should be referenced for current high school seniors who are considered dependent students on the FAFSA. So now moving on to our second campaign component, we have Alabama College Application Week. And the goal is to ensure that high school seniors apply to at least one post-secondary institution and that they're getting assistance from us as they navigate this more complex process. So this effort is part of a national campaign. It's part of the American College Application Campaign, which you can see linked below. They have a lot of great resources on their website that I encourage you to use during our second college application week. But as part of the national campaign, the Alabama State Department of Education really leads this work. So we're excited to see another week of free applications offered to students in February. Here are the dates that have already come and gone. So we had our first week, October 17th through the 21st. And if you participated in the Fall Alabama College Application Week, we would love for you to report your data on that event. So if you haven't already, I am dropping a form in the chat. Each school should be reporting what they've achieved during free application week. So please make sure if you haven't already that you are completing that form. It's very simple, just a few questions. And we hope to glean a lot from that so that we know how we're improving year to year. And then we are excited for the February opportunity. That'll be another chance for students to maybe think about some schools that they didn't have on their list during the October opportunity. So be on the lookout for both the dates and the details on that week. All right, and so with college applications, of course, students have the entire week during college application week to submit free applications, but another really great opportunity to apply to college for free is by using the Common Black College application. So I just want to check in and see how many of you are utilizing that opportunity. It has been made free to Alabama students. So Alabama students are able to apply to more than 60 HBCUs for free. But it does look like a lot of you are using it. That's really encouraging. We do have a one-pager, a little FAQ in our Educator Toolkit. So that is linked in the chat for you to reference. I'm going to put it back towards the top of your chat so you have it. It's in our general assets folder, and it has the code that the student will need in order to complete this application for free. All right, so it looks like around half of you have used this with your students. That's awesome to hear. Let them know that they won't have to pay the $20 that they might read on the website. They'll be able to do it completely for free. And you can promote this throughout the entire year. You don't have to reserve this for Alabama College Application Week. Feel free to share this with your students at any time. All right, so moving on to our last campaign component, we have College and Career Decision Day. So the goal of this is to celebrate students committing to pursue education and training after high school. And a lot of our key resources are coming from Reach Higher and then Better Make Room. So if you aren't familiar, Reach Higher started as an initiative of former First Lady Michelle Obama, and it focuses on how counselors can support their students in the goal of completing education beyond high school. And then that initiative launched Better Make Room, which is the student-facing campaign. So it includes events that I'm sure most of y'all are familiar with, like College Signing Day. And so what we're looking forward to at the end of this academic year is having a webinar all about ways that you can celebrate your students. And over the years, we've had educators get really creative and really innovative with the ways that they're celebrating students, both in person and online, because the pandemic prompted a lot of really creative online ways to do this. And of course, a lot of y'all are amplifying and elevating your students across social media, which we love to see. So we'll talk a lot more about that kind of around the April timeframe so that you're geared up and ready to go once May rolls around. So looking forward to that. So now we're going to just look at a few items that are in our Educators Toolkit that is linked in the chat. So you can click that to be able to access our Google Drive, which is where all of these resources are housed. There is a general folder, and then there is one folder for each campaign component. So if we go into our general folder, we'll see a few things that I just mentioned. So starting off with our campaign timeline that you can have posted up for reference throughout the year. And then two tools that we think are really important. We have our Educator's Handbook, which lays out pretty much everything to do with the Alabama Goes to College campaign. It sends you to relevant links. It recaps why this work is important. And then we have a student and family facing version that's going to be more relevant to that audience. So some of the same items, but more tailored to students and families. So it includes things like creating FSA ID, steps for completing the FAFSA, little facts about the FAFSA, a lot of financial aid information in here, and then application checklists for when students are applying to college, when they're making their decisions. So this might be a good way for students to lay out all of their different options and then make the best decision for them based on what they're seeing and comparing. And then rounding it out with college and career decision day, where they're really thinking about net cost among many other factors that might go into their decision. So we have those handbooks and guidebooks. Like I was mentioning a few minutes ago, we have our Common Black College app FAQ. So this is how you're going to access the application and then apply the promo code that will allow students to apply completely for free. And there are some resources that are linked down below. So one thing I wanted to bring your attention to, as it's very timely, our wonderful partners over at Get Schooled have put together some resources for the month of January. And this is both for high school juniors and high school seniors. So this can inform your advising sessions or any lesson or event that you might be planning. And it covers everything from applying to college, or if students have already done that, how to find scholarships to really fund their college decision, what they need to be thinking about as seniors as it relates to maintaining their grades and their GPA. And then also, if they're considering things like internships for the summer, or if they're exploring different careers for after graduation, there are little articles, videos, and then activities that you can use to really guide these advising sessions. So again, some stuff for juniors as well as seniors. So I hope you'll find that useful. Going back out to our drive. So again, we have one folder for each campaign component. One thing that I wanted to show you as we are planning for our second Alabama College Application Week, in the general folder, we have this Get Accepted guide, again from our partners at Get Schooled, and it is quite thorough. It would be an amazing resource to go ahead and share with your high school juniors as they're kind of thinking about applying to college in their senior year. It's about a 10 or 11 page guide. It's all the things that students might want to think about as they are applying, but I recognize many of your students might already have applied. It also gives some follow-up steps after applications. So things to be thinking about when students have already submitted their applications. I would like to take a moment to bring on a few educators, a few of your peer educators who will share some of the strategies that they have been employing. And I would love it if they could spend a little bit of time addressing that parent engagement piece, since we heard from many of you that that is one of your biggest challenges. So, Nancy, I'd like to invite you on to unmute and tell us a little bit about what you've already had happening this January and what you have ahead.
Hey everyone, I'm Nancy Wolf, and this is Lacey Guthrie, who's on as well. And we're the district college counselors for Huntsville City Schools. And we just had an event last night, actually, for parents. It was a parent college session or sessions. We had it organized for before Christmas break, but then we had like a weather day that day. So we had to go ahead and reschedule for January. We had over 95 families participate last night, grades 9 through 12, and we did have one 8th grade parent. But that only counts individual sign-ins. That doesn't count the kids and spouses that came as well. So Lacey just posted the flyer that we put out. We started off with a small college fair for half an hour and asked some of the wonderful people we work with a whole lot from different colleges to come. We then had a college panel for about 40 minutes. We asked them some questions, directed questions, and then we had time for parents to ask questions, again, grades 9 through 12. And then after that, we had 5 breakout sessions. We had a session on applying to college, what to expect. We had a session on paying for college, which NACE, it's the North Alabama Center for Educational Excellence. We work closely with them for FAFSA completions, application completions. They did the presentation on paying for college, which of course included FAFSA. And we had YACT and GPA, how those factor into admissions. We had a session on alternative routes rather than college, whether it's technical schools, careers, other pathways. And then we had a session on how to choose a major from somebody at a local college. Participation was good. Our feedback has been great. It kind of went by in a whirlwind. Lacey, so that's the handout or the thing that we used to advertise. We advertised it through everything we could, emails. We have a Facebook page. We have a website. We sent it to our system. They put it out on avenues that they have access to. And then I think Lacey also has our agenda that she's going to put up there. But yeah, so we did that last night, getting 9th and 10th graders and mostly their parents just to know what's coming, 11th graders ready. And then, we're still working with seniors, as I'm sure everyone is. But that's our agenda that we had last night. So, and it ended by the time everybody left, it was about 8 o'clock after we took questions. And then we had them do an assessment at the end.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. And I love that it was inclusive of all grades in high school so that you're starting this conversation early. Folks are aware of what they can expect over their 4 years throughout high school, and then having parents engage. And I think the breakout session is really an awesome idea because folks can choose what's most relevant to them. And you are really including all kinds of pathways. So I love it. And I'm glad y'all had success with that. Thanks so much for sharing. We appreciate it.
Thanks.
So yeah, one thing that we are planning to do in February, we have our community building conversations. And something that we're going to talk about with our February conversation is how to start these conversations early and how we're advising not just our seniors, but our juniors around these topics. So I hope that y'all will be able to attend that. I think we have the date listed in our upcoming slides. So let me move through. I did not see any questions in the chat yet, but if you have any, feel free to add those now. Can be anything we've covered, or it can be for our presenters, Nancy and Lacey. And then we're going to get into our PD survey so that we can make sure y'all get credit. And if you're able to hang on a few more moments after our poll questions, we will be previewing some of the upcoming professional development opportunities. So I want to make sure I get those dates to y'all so y'all know what to expect. And so you'll see in the chat, I've put a link to Power School, which is where you will be requesting the PD credit. So when you visit that link, you'll need to enter in course number 295839 and then section number 463079. When you do that, that's how you're registering to be considered for PD credit. We then check your attendance through Zoom. That's why it's so important that you use your Zoom login credentials so that we're able to accurately account for everyone. So ideally do that within about a 2-day window or so. That's what the State Department looks for when they're reviewing PD eligibility. Awesome. So like I mentioned, we have a lot of events upcoming. So I'm really focusing on the next 2 months, and then with one of our bigger conferences that's coming in April. But we'll have on Wednesday, January 25th at 10:30 a.m. our Using Data to Support Your FAFSA Completion campaign, which is where we're going to go in detail about the AIC portal as well as the Cash for College dashboard. So if you are utilizing the AIC portal regularly and you have common questions, please bring them to that session. We will get them addressed. And we'll also have a representative from Power School on that session who can tell you all of the ways that you need to get your Power School data cleaned so that student information is pulling into the AIC portal. Because we want to make sure that your school's FAFSA completion percentages are correctly reflected in the AIC portal. And one big component of that is making sure that your Power School data is clean. So we hope you'll be able to attend that. The next week, we'll be having part 2 of our college admissions 101 webinar. This will feature out-of-state institutions. So back in October, we did in-state, and now we're focusing on out-of-state. That'll also be at 10:30 a.m. So both of those you're able to register for now. And then in February, we have 2 events scheduled so far, but more are coming. Our first is that community building conversation that I was referencing on Tuesday, February 7th. That'll be at noon. That's when we're really going to talk about engaging juniors as well as seniors in these advising conversations. And then we're having our first FAFSA office hours of 2023. That is scheduled for Thursday, February 9th. It'll be 1 hour where you can come and go as you please with FAFSA questions you have. So they can be general or they can be specific to a certain student. And it's just first come, first serve. So you can log in the Zoom, ask your question, and then head on out. Our last session, we had several educators stay on the whole time. They just wanted to learn more from other people's questions. And I thought that worked out really nicely. It was a really good way to learn what are common challenges people are facing with the application and how to work through those. So hope you'll attend. And then we wanted to put one of our bigger events on your radar. So a little save the date for Tuesday, April 11th. That is when our Alabama College Attainment Network Spring Conference will be taking place. So, a lot more details about that to come. But essentially, our spring conference is a gathering of education stakeholders, folks who are really supporting students to college, to careers. And we would love if you could participate either by attending or even presenting. So we will talk a lot more about that in the coming weeks, but just wanted to give you the date for right now. And yes, like our program director, Manisha, mentioned in the chat, if you want to present, we'll have a call for proposals. So that should be sent out soon. So if you have any questions at all, you can reach our help desk. We're available at 334-316-6155. You can either call that line or text that line, and your students can use that number as well. So we've been getting lots of great FAFSA questions over the last few weeks. Feel free to keep them coming. And then you can also find us at AL Goes to College on our social media platforms. Other ways that you can reach us are through our email address, which is algoestocollege@alabamapossible.org. We greatly appreciate your time with us today for just investing in your students in this class of 2023. We wish all of the success in the upcoming year. And again, feel free to reach out, and we hope to see you soon.